Now, I know tonight is the season finale, last day of the regular season. And many of you might say, all right, you know what? It's a day where I don't have to go and watch a bunch of games. 7 of them on the docket tonight. Take your pick. Some of the teams are going to the playoffs, some aren't. But here's what I'm curious about in a kind of freakish way. Maybe you're like me. You know, there's an old saying, and that is, if you give a player a reason not to hit, he won't hit. I really do wonder how much the Jason Robertson injury last night for the Dallas Stars is going to have a chilling effect over everybody in the NHL this season. Now, nobody obviously wants to get injured before playoffs. For teams that don't have playoffs, nobody wants to start their offseason injured. So normally the last game of the season, as you like to say, is Nolan Ryan baseball, no hit. But I'm really curious to see what happens tonight by way of superstar players and how much ice time they have and how they are treated out there. And I really do wonder how much of a chilling effect the Robertson injury now, where Zach, I mean, the effects are being felt. Listen, with our friends and partners at FanDuel as well, you were pointing out before the program, all of a sudden last night, we're having like odds change really quickly after the Robertson injury. You want to fire up what you found last night?
Yeah, I took a look what it was this morning compared to last night, and we saw the biggest change. Dallas was the favorite to come out of the West there, courtesy of FanDuel. Yesterday was at plus 310. Robertson injury, they drop behind Colorado, Vegas, Winnipeg, and Edmonton to plus 500 to win. Colorado launches themselves up to first there. Vegas, Winnipeg, and Edmonton obviously slotting in behind, but I thought that was crazy. I mean, it makes sense. It's a reactive move to a star player there, but massive shift, Jeff, after last night.
Yeah, and massive, potentially massive injury here for the Dallas Stars. And this is supposed to be one of the go-for-it years for Dallas, as some of their veterans, like we've talked about this all season long. I want to get to Montreal here in a second, trust me. Congratulations to them, and we'll get to Columbus. But this was one of the years where Dallas said, look, we got to go for it this year because some of our older guys are really starting to age out here, and we're not sure whether the younger guys are ready to take over. So that's why you saw the Dallas Stars as aggressive in and around trade deadline, whether it's Rantanen, whether it's Granlund, or whether, before that with Cody Ceci. That's why you saw Jim Nill really aggressive. And you'd hate to say that one injury is going to scotch all of it, but this one's huge. Post Four Nations, Jason Robertson, post Four Nations snub, Jason Robertson became, the Jason Robertson that we're used to, really. Really, I know he's never going to have, Pavel Bure-like speed, but really responsible defensively. We all know how he drives play. We all know how he can finish, how he can score goals, around the net, get it on his stick, and it's in there. You'd hate to see all of this undone because of one injury. And that's a massive one to Jason Robertson. Anyhow, more on that coming up in a couple of moments with Pierre McGuire, who's going to stop by the program. In the meantime, we have a lot to get to on today's program, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. How about that? Daily Outlines presented by our friends and partners at FanDuel, who shifted yesterday. No longer Dallas on top. Make every moment more with North America's #1 sports book. And coming up on the program today, we have a lot to get to. Pierre McGuire is going to stop by. We're going to get into a couple of things here with Pierre. There's all the series that are on the horizon here that gets underway this weekend on Saturday. We'll also talk about teams that are saying bye-bye and what's next for them. And perhaps most interestingly, and we'll get to Pierre on this one, the Boston Bruins. What happens in the offseason by way of acquisition and what happens by way of who's coaching this thing come next season. We'll also talk about the Montreal Canadiens getting in yesterday, Gouli with a pair of goals. That was a pretty exciting game. Good for Carolina, too, for not just wilting, not wilting in this one at all. They were not like soft serve ice cream. Like, they fought right to the end. Good on Carolina. They didn't make it easy for the Montreal Canadiens. We will talk about load management and what we'll see tonight. A bunch of game 82s, and as now the playoff picture gets into a little bit more of a sharper focus. So a couple of things here. At the beginning of the season, we wondered, Zach, who was going to distinguish themselves from a pack. And there's one pack in the Eastern Conference that we looked at, and we said there are 3 teams, and then there's a trailing 4th. Montreal's not quite there yet. We think that Buffalo's ahead of them. We think that Detroit is ahead of them. We think that Ottawa is ahead of them. And we'll see what happens next season. But as of right now, it is Ottawa in the postseason. They'll face off against the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens, who make it in on their game 82. They'll face off against the Washington Capitals. Like I've been saying all week, I'm of two minds on this one. I love seeing that logo, those fans, that rink involved in the postseason. It's always better when the most distinct and unique market in the entire NHL, also the oldest in the NHL, is involved in the postseason. But man, I wanted Columbus to get in. I really wanted to see all of that rewarded. I wanted to see, I wanted to see Adam Fantilli, and wanted to see Sean Monahan front and center, and Jet Greaves to see how far he could take this team. Good on Columbus. Good on for Columbus. This was a season that no one really looked at Columbus and said, yeah, this team's going to make it into the postseason. No chance, even though we knew the Metropolitan was going to be kind of a jump ball here. Good on Columbus for this one. Disappointment all around that they didn't get in. A lot of us, if not all of us, were cheering for the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Calgary Flames with a soft spot in our heart for those two teams and Johnny Gaudreau, certainly. But Montreal is in, and park your leafiness to one side for a second and just focus on the NHL. This is going to be really cool, right? And again, there's still a lot of question marks around the Washington Capitals with this team and the postseason, but still, on paper, this does kind of look like a mismatch, not unlike what it did in 2010. And I know everything's changed outside of Ovechkin, but here we go again. Do you think Montreal has a shot at this one?
Yes, I do. Jeremiah, plug your ears. I'm sorry. I know you're a Caps fan, and to other Caps fans in there, I apologize. Yep. Look, it's not that I think Washington's fraudulent, Jeff. I think that's the wrong way to use it, but they've been tailing off, and I feel like they rode a high is more so the way I would like to put this season. Everyone talked about, hey, Ovi's going to be chasing this. That's the entire focus. I don't think it was the entire focus, but I feel like that dragged the excitement with the team up, and it dragged the level of play up, and then it feels like they've been in a tailspin, and they're not getting the goaltending the same. I just feel like they are a vulnerable. That's the way I'd like to put this one, Jeff. I'll put it as they are a vulnerable team in the first round going in here with the way that this thing has tailed off. I don't really think Montreal's a threat to do damage further on in the playoffs, but I just feel like the door is open enough that they could maybe put a scare in Washington. I still think the Caps win it. Let's be clear about that. I do think they win it, but I think it's open. It's not shut and closed case.
So I look at what happens the week before the playoffs start, and I kind of throw it away. Kind of like how I throw away the idea of momentum within a series. I just don't see it, and I just don't believe in it. Every game in a series is distinct from any other game, and I don't know that I see on a consistent basis carry over from the regular season, especially a team like Washington. Everything was wrapped up and done after that Sunday afternoon at UBS when Alexander Ovechkin broke the record. And don't forget, they lost that game too, right? And I wonder how much of that was Washington, had everything wrapped up. They're tucked away. They've been burning. And they're like, look, we can take a week and a half off. We can chill here. Because with the playoffs coming, you don't want to burn all the way through to game 82 and have nothing left for the postseason. I wonder if this is just Washington saying, all right, mission accomplished, got the job done, got to this position in this spot, now we're taking the foot off the pedal. Because that's what it felt like to me.
But is there not concern about teams' ability to turn it on and just overnight flip a switch and be playoff ready? Maybe I'm saying that because I'm a scarred Leafs fan who has dealt with 82 games of they'll turn it on in the playoffs, and it doesn't happen. But I do genuinely wonder that. Like the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think they can do that. I think that they could find a way to coast into the playoffs and say, we'll figure it out when we get there. And game one, all of a sudden, they're going to be coming out Dr. Hook McCracken, trying to take each other's eyes out. Like, I feel like that's very possible for them. Colorado gives me those vibes as well. I wonder if the guys in the room in Washington, because there's a lot of change from the teams that went on that cup run and had those experiences in years past, if they just have that ability. I'm not trying to say they don't, but I mean, look, Jeff, the other thing too here is that I don't think that this is just look at the last week and a half for Washington. It's been a month and a half, 2 months of Washington's play sputtering a little bit here. And it really turned to the focus of getting Ovi the goal record. And with that, team play did take a dip. It's not like they went on like this Dallas 7-game skid to end the season. but it did falter a little bit. And I wonder about an ability to just change mindset overnight and go into the playoffs with that we're ready to come and kill you kind of mentality.
So here's a couple of names here on a totally different topic before Pierre joins us. So what do these players all have in common? Thomas Chabot, Brady Tkachuk, Zemgus Girgensons, and Jeff Skinner.
Played a long, long time without getting to the playoffs.
This is their first shot at the postseason. Thomas Chabot, 512 games. Brady Tkachuk, 511 games. Zemgus Girgensons, 769 games. But it's finally going to happen for Jeff Skinner. 1,078 games later. Jeff Skinner
Zemgus Girgensons
not going home.
With one of the most amazing hype songs about him as well, by the way.
Yes, very true.
Yes.
And one of Terry Pagula's favorite players of all time. And with that, we'll bring on Pierre McGuire, our good friend and noted hockey analyst, who joins me on game 82 for a number of teams, Pierre. And one of the things, and listen, thanks for always being available and being with me today. One of the things that I wonder about when I look at these games, like there's a number of games tonight around the NHL, and I can't help but thinking to myself, like there's 7 games. And I can't help but think of myself, if you're Toronto, if you're Carolina, if you're Tampa, if you're Washington, if you're LA, how much did that Jason Robertson injury last night throw a chill into everybody tonight? Like I was saying off the top, like you've heard the old cliche, if you give a player a reason or an excuse not to hit, he won't hit. And I wonder tonight if like that's the excuse. Boys, bubble wrap yourself. We're going to nerf the world, and we're going to get into the playoffs as healthy as we can. Let's start there.
Prior planning prevents potential problems. So you should have had this figured out if you were a playoff team a long time ago, like Rod Brindamore did last night. You know, I heard a lot of people complaining about, Carolina's resting all these guys. You know why Carolina had the ability to rest guys? Because they played a season well enough so that they had the wiggle room to rest guys. So I have a lot of respect for that. I've been through this twice before in Pittsburgh, and the best coaches prepare properly. And I watched Bob Johnson do it. I watched Scotty Bowman do it, and they both won cups. And we all know what Scotty's done over the course of his career. I think people get panicked, and they don't realize that sometimes you got to save the players from themselves.
Yes.
And that's the reasons why I think you got to just tell guys, sorry, you're not playing. And Rod Brindamore, a Stanley Cup champion, as a player and a captain, realized that last night.
Let me bracket the conversation about Jason Robertson in Dallas here for a second, because the headline is the Montreal Canadiens are in. Like I've talked a lot about that building, those fans, this team, that logo, the history, all of it. It is the most distinctive NHL market that exists. You know, I've always made the joke, you've probably heard it, there's no original 6, there's an original 1. It's the Montreal Canadiens, and everybody else is an expansion team. Like that's the special place that the Montreal Canadiens have in our hockey hearts. Your thoughts on Montreal jumping in front of 2 teams specifically, which we thought were ahead of them, the Buffalo Sabres and the Detroit Red Wings. Your thoughts?
Marty St. Louis deserves a lot of credit. Jeff Gorton deserves a lot of credit. And I think Kent Hughes deserves a massive amount of credit. Yeah. So do their amateur scouts, and so do some of their pro scouts. I think they've done a masterful job. And the biggest thing to me is there were very few people thinking that Lane Hudson was going to be a franchise player when he was drafted in the second round. Lane Hudson's not a superstar player. He's a franchise player. Nick Suzuki, do you think Vegas would like a mulligan on the Nick Suzuki trade? I think they would. Mark Bergevin deserves credit on Cole Caulfield. He does. Slavkovsky's a work in progress. But to me, the biggest thing is the thing that changed this team around, Jeff, and it's a lot like what St. Louis did with Cam Fowler, if you think about it. St. Louis, a small trade, but a big trade for them. They started to surge when they got Cam Fowler. Alex Carrier comes from Nashville to Montreal, changes the whole dynamic of their back end, and they started to surge after they got him.
Can you explain that one to me? That is one trade this year, like honestly, Pierre, that I cannot figure out. Like, first of all, bravo for Montreal. Bravo for Kent Hughes. I can't figure that deal out. Like, I'm with you. Like, that was one of those like really quiet. This is changing the Habs. I can't figure. That's one of those like he robbed the bank and didn't have to wear a mask kind of trades here for Kent Hughes. Like, can you explain this one to me, Pierre?
I think that Nashville probably wanted to get younger. Somebody internally must have really liked Justin Barron. Obviously, Carrier was a player that Montreal really liked a lot. I can tell you, Jeff, and I have no problem saying this, the guys who were in the meeting room will tell you, when I was in Ottawa, I pushed to try to acquire that player. And this was 3 years ago because he was trending upwards. And I really salute the pro scouts for the Montreal Canadiens for recognizing that this guy was still climbing the ladder in a positive way. And that's why they went out and got him. But I think that trade helped this team so much in so many ways. It gave Mike Matheson a stable partner. It allowed Lane Hudson to play deeper in the lineup. It allowed Lane Hudson to run the first power play. It took some pressure off of David Savard on the first penalty kill. There are a lot of things that the acquisition of Carrier did in Montreal, just like the acquisition of Cam Fowler did in St. Louis. It's virtually the same kind of move.
So in our chat, Rich H says, Pierre was miles ahead of the curve on Lane Hudson's talent and instant impact. Kudos. When did it sort of dawn on you that this guy was going to be, well, this guy?
I saw him practicing at BU his freshman year, so his first year, and I said, I haven't seen a young guy move the puck like that since Brian Leetch. Wow. And I saw Brian Leetch play at Avon Oil Farms for the legendary John Gartner, and his partner was a guy named Rich Brasha that went to play at RPI. There was no comparable. No disrespect meant to Rich, but I can tell you right now, Brian was at another level. So when I saw that, I'm saying, okay, I drew up a lot of game plans to try to beat Brian Leetch up and affect the way he affected a game. And I'm watching Lane Hudson his freshman year at BU, and I'm going, man, I've never seen a guy like this. And it wasn't so much about his shot. His shot's not overwhelming. It wasn't so much about how hard he passed the puck. It's how he processed the game. Jeff, he's at another level.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm a huge Quinn Hughes guy. I think this Lane Hudson's going to be better than him. I do. I think he'll be better than him.
He's changed the entire. Not that I want to drill it down just to one person, but he's completely changed the outlook of that Montreal Canadiens team. I mentioned off the top with you at the beginning of this conversation, the Montreal Canadiens have jumped over two teams here as far as development goes, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the ascension of Lane Hudson has taken him to that spot. But here becomes the question. And you referenced Mark Bergevin a couple of seconds ago. Mark Bergevin used to have and probably still does, has a saying, there are players that get you there and there are players that get you through. Now, we know that Montreal Canadiens have players that got them there. Do they have the players, though, that can get them through? I mean, Lou Lamoriello used to always build his teams based on, we're building guys that get us through. Sometimes
the crash line, Bobby Holik, Randy McKay.
Those guys get you through. They get you through.
Mike Peluso. No, I understand. I know.
Yeah.
I was coaching then. they were tough guys. I know exactly what you're talking about. No, great point and true. I think Lane Hudson's a player that doesn't just get you there. He can help get you through. I think Nick Suzuki's a player that gets you there and help. Mm-hmm. Last night was vintage Nick Suzuki. He took that team on his back and said, I was no good against Chicago 2 nights ago, but I'm going to be good tonight. And he was. Here's my biggest thing, though, at Montreal. They might not get through this year, But Jeff, their team in Laval, I know they lost last night 2-1. They had some older guys take the night off. They did. They had some older guys take the night off last night.
Yeah.
They got a wealth of guys coming, Jeff. They're going to be a scary team in a couple of years. They really are.
They might win the Calder. They might win the Calder this year.
Well, if Fowler plays,
they're good.
Laval's deep in goal. I mean, they're deep. They got three guys. They got Connor Hughes. They got Wayne Primo Primo, not Wayne. Caden Primo, thank you. Yeah. Wayne's his uncle. And obviously Jacob Fowler.
Yeah.
And, I talked to, a bunch of friends of mine that are heavily involved in the American Hockey League, and they're like, whoa, this guy's a lot better than we thought. No, he's a lot like Lane Hudson to me. And I'm very comfortable telling you this, Jeff, and I'm not trying to make, noise on your show. I tried to recruit Marty Brodeur out of a midget AAA team called Montreal Canadiens back in the late 1980s. He was 16, turning 17 years old. Uh-huh. He was the guy. Like, I'm telling you, if we got this guy, we would have won a national championship or two. We were pretty close without him, but if we'd gotten him, probably would have won. Jacob Fowler's not as good as Marty Brodeur, but man, oh man, there are a lot of similarities. I'm just telling you, there are a lot of similarities.
He's an interesting goal. First of all, I love the mask. Can we just be frivolous for 1 second with the Coldplay lyric on the back? Like, this guy's known. Like, I'm goaltenders more than any other position. You need to go to the American Hockey League. Guys don't get drafted and then walk into the NHL. Buffalo tried it with Devin Levi, and he's playing great for Rochester, and that's where he belongs. When you look at Fowler, the question is going to become, how long does he need down there? You watch this guy plenty. Like, essentially what I'm asking you is, how close is Fowler?
I would say if they could go on an extended run in the playoffs, he could be ready by the end of this playoff season. But it's got to be an extended run. If not, he's got to start down there next year. It's funny. People always want to knock Commissioner Bettman. Think about this for 1 second. Here's a kid from Florida that was a starting goalie at Boston College, won a championship in the USHL in Youngstown, and now he's going to compete for an American League championship in Laval. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but he's going to compete for it. Yeah. He's a product of non-traditional expansion of hockey markets. That's what he is.
It takes a generation.
All those kids from California, all those kids coming from Arizona. Hey, Austin Matthews from Scottsdale, Arizona. Matthew Nizer from Scottsdale, Arizona. Yeah. This is all on, like, people don't want to acknowledge it. This is on Bettman. Yeah. All these players are because of non-traditional hockey markets.
I think that there's a couple of things. I think the commissioner recognized it and saw the potential for it, but I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but the beginning of it was the Gretzky trade. Like the beginning of it was like Gretzky's going to LA, Bruce McNall, with all the baggage that Bruce McNall had. Like, but like the effects are still, like, you're right. Like, I look at, and I've always said about all these markets, it's going to take a generation, and the key is the Minor Hockey Association. And the key is, and this is why I love what Ryan Smith is doing in Utah, like donating money to help build rinks. You need sheets. Like, I'll tell you, like, obviously your son plays, and I have kids that play it. And once upon a time, like, the idea of playing a minor/youth hockey tournament in Nashville, now some of the best tournaments are in Nashville, and some of the best teams. And there's two different rival associations now in Nashville that are growing talent, but it takes a generation. Like, it takes a generation to get those players in.
You're so spot on. I got to share this with you and your viewers. They'll love this. I used to have a lot of breakfast with the late Badger Bob Johnson.
Yeah.
We'd stay at the Vista Hotel in Pittsburgh. Yeah. We'd go down and have breakfast, and it was really early in the morning, and all it would be hockey talk. And one day he said to me at breakfast, he said, "Pierre, could you imagine if somebody would have found Michael Jordan and got him on skates when he was 8 years old?"
It's a great point. It's a great point.
And he said, one of my favorite teams at that time, anyways, the Denver Broncos. You just didn't say that very loud in Pittsburgh because they don't like the Broncos in Pittsburgh. And so Badger said, "Could you imagine if somebody would have got skates on John Elway?" Yeah. Badger Bob, his whole vision for growing the game was to get these great athletes from all these other sports when they were younger, and trying to get them to play. And I think that's been the genius of these non-traditional hockey markets getting expansion teams. all these kids think hockey's cool and they want to play. And we're getting Austin Matthews, we're getting Matthew Nyes, we're getting Jacob Fowler, we're getting all these guys now all of a sudden where, wow, where'd this guy come from? If I would have told you in the 1960s, the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs would be from Scottsdale, Arizona, he would have scored almost 70 goals in one season. And by the way, his left winger is going to be from Scottsdale, Arizona too.
Yeah.
You would say, are you out of your mind?
Yeah, are you crazy? You're nuts.
Yeah, I might be that, but yeah.
It was crazy enough when the Toronto Toros went to Birmingham. And we're like, what? Who's going to play hockey? Who's going to play hockey there? Anyway, we're getting excited. But the point of, listen, Badger's point is the right one. And now pay attention, rest of the world, because now the elite of the elite young athletes in the United States, it used to be football and track and field and basketball and baseball and hockey somewhere down near the bottom. Now you're starting to see some of those elite athletes pick up hockey first. That's where it gets scary for everybody else. Okay, Battle of Ontario. How the other surprise team that's emerged from that pack. How do you see this one playing out, or what are the curiosities for you in this one?
Well, Ottawa's had success against Toronto all regular season, but that doesn't translate to playoff hockey. No. I don't think there's a roster in the East that's bigger, better, or more proficient than Toronto's on paper. Doesn't mean that you're going to win because it's on paper. I think the key is going to be if they can get to Linus Ullmark early in the series, that's a problem for Ottawa. The other problem for Ottawa is the lack of depth they have on the right side of their defense and the size of Toronto's left wingers. If they put situational dump in, so let's just say you're Toronto and you say, okay, to all your guys, we're going to direct all our shooting to the right side of their ice, our left side, and you got Matthew Nyes, you got Bobby McMahon. Whether you have Max Domi or not at center or wing, it doesn't matter. You got Pontus Holmberg. All our left guys are big, they're strong, they're fast. We're going to just pulverize the right defense spot. I think if they game plan like that, and they probably understand that, that's going to be a problem for Ottawa. But Kachuk factor has to be weighed. There's a huge factor for them. The Pinto factor in terms of matchup, does he get Tavares or does he get Matthews? That's going to be a big issue too. And, I hope Ty's watching this. When I was coaching Pittsburgh, we played Rangers in the playoffs. And we used to tell our guys, don't even waste your time with Domi. We don't want to waste their time with him. He can get you off your game and drive you nuts. And he used to play on a line with Chris King and Darren Turcotte. So he'd say, we'll take our chance with the other two guys, but don't mess around with Domi. I would just say this with Ridley Gregg. He could be that guy. And you better not get off your game because of Ridley Gregg. So there's certain situational things that I think Toronto's coaching staff has to pay attention to. But Ottawa, they're playing with house money. They really are this year. I think next year is going to be their year. I just don't think they have enough experience this year.
I think you nailed with Linus Ullmark. To me, the whole series revolves around him. If he can finally drag a team into deep water here and not just stay in the kiddie end of the pool, then I think we have a real series. Like, to me, this is the big test of Linus Ullmark. Let me ask you about Colorado and Dallas. Now, this one took a major negative turn last night with Jason Robertson. I mentioned off the top, like the chill I would imagine around, like, boys, nobody hit. Like, this is Randy Johnson baseball here. No one touches. No one hits. No one hits. That one's there's no way to underscore how massive a loss that could be for the Dallas Stars, who are already going to start without Miro Heiskanen. Is there still enough there for Dallas to beat Colorado?
I think the factor for them is going to be depth at the center ice position. When you look at the Colorado center ice position, starting with Nathan McKinnon, and then you go to Brock Nelson, then you go to Charlie Coyle, and then you go to Jack Drury. I even talked about Ross Colton, who's a natural center iceman when he played at the Taft School and also at the University of Vermont. I mean, they're deeper at center. And that's no disrespect meant to Rupe Hintz. It's no disrespect meant to
Sure.
Tyler Seguin. There's no disrespect meant to Matty Duchesne. None. They're just not as deep. So that's a problem for Dallas. And the other thing I think is a big problem for Dallas is no Miro Heiskanen. That, Thomas Harley had a nice little breakout party at the Four Nations. I get it.
Yeah.
But he's not Miro Heiskanen. They don't have anybody like Miro Heiskanen. They don't.
Edmonton and Los Angeles. The beginning of the season.
Home games.
So
LA, just win all 4 of your games at home. It doesn't matter. that. You're
that's
good
it.
at
Like
it. One of them this year.
when Hiller gets his matchups, like you can't lose. When he gets his matchups at home, like LA, like they may not play the most exciting brand of hockey. They might not score a lot of goals, but they don't ask how you won. At the beginning of the season, if we would have said like, oh yeah, here we go, it's going to be LA and Edmonton again. Okay, here's the layup, the 2-foot putt. It's going to be Edmonton in 5. Maybe LA takes 1. I don't think anyone's feeling like that now. And I think a lot of it is about the performance of the Kings, but also the injuries. And Matthias Ekholm is just like, you just wonder if that's like the bridge too far. You just wonder if like that's the one that's the one player Edmonton can't afford to lose outside of obviously McDavid and Draisaitl. Thoughts on that?
You're so on it. And here, can I just throw one more thing at you, Jeff? Because I think you'll appreciate this. Philip Broberg's playing in St. Louis, and Dylan Holloway's playing in St. Louis, and Cody Cece's not there anymore. And you go around and you start now. You don't have Matthias Ekholm. It's not the same team as last year, Jeff. It's not. And so I think there was a miscalculation last summer. Obviously, St. Louis took advantage of it, and it's benefited them unbelievably, and I think it's really hurt Edmonton.
Before I let you, I want to get a couple more series here. But one thing I did want to ask you about, I don't want to stir up a controversy where there's not one, but Jonas Korpisalo, a clear out day for the Boston Bruins, talking about, look, I got to push for more games here. 25 isn't doing anything for me here. He's got 3 more years on his contract with the Boston Bruins. We know that Jeremy Swayman is the top dog there. What are your big questions heading into this offseason, which will be a crucial one for the Boston Bruins if they're going to get back into this thing? Like, look, Montreal is here. That gets tougher in the Atlantic. Ottawa is here. That gets tougher in the Atlantic. We think the Detroit Red Wings, with all their cap space, will do something sizable. That's going to mean more in the Atlantic as well. It'll probably all start with the bench boss situation. I do wonder about Joel Quenneville with the Boston Bruins. But when you look at Beantown, what are your questions here, Pierre?
Center ice play. I don't think they ever addressed losing Bergeron, Krejci. I know they tried, but I don't think they did a very good job of it. Here's the thing. I think you're going to see where their mindset is, an organization and a management team, if they do not go out and try to get, whether it's through trade or free agency, a center iceman, a legitimate center iceman. I think they miscalculated on a couple other things too. When they let Matt Grizzly go, I think they thought they were probably going to get a better replacement for Mason Lohrei. He showed spots, but he still hasn't gotten to where he needs to be. So there's a lack of depth in defense, and I would say that there's a lot of work that has to be done there. The biggest thing that I thought hurt them last year, Jeff, was the Swayman contract negotiation. How long it lasted, and he was not nearly the goalie that he needed to be for that team. So they got some fixing to do there. They got to mend some fences. But I'm very comfortable telling you this. If you don't see the Bruins go out and get a center iceman, a legit top end guy, through trade or free agency, then I think it's all for nothing. They'll be floundering again next year.
If I can't help but looking at this and saying, okay, so they already have players at outside of the center position, and you might make the argument that's the most important. Like they've got elite level players in net, elite level players on the back end, and they have David Pastrnak, one of the best goal scorers of this generation. Like it's a good place to start a rebuild on the fly here if you're the Boston Bruins.
That's why I say if you don't get a centerman, it doesn't matter.
Well, they're growing on trees, right? You just get one of those from the center tree in the backyard. You just go and pluck one off.
I don't want to make these fans upset, but you'll appreciate this. They made a trade a few years ago. I believe it was 2006. There was a guy named Joe Thornton that went to San Jose.
Yeah.
For Marco Sturm, Wayne Primo, and a guy named Brad Stewart, who was a very good junior player for the Calgary Hitmen back in the day. Went to a Memorial Cup final in 1999. But they traded Joe Thornton out of Boston, Jeff. I mean, it's been done before. Teams have traded number one centers before. Gretzky got traded. Messier got traded. So maybe.
So look around the league and find me that number. Well, listen, I think. Listen, I don't want to go down the McDavid road conversation again, but July 1st is going to be really interesting because I think there'll be a lot of teams that, if this is the end for McDavid with Edmonton, there'll be a lot of teams that clear the deck. Like Boston will be one of those teams. Philadelphia will be one of those teams. The Rangers will be one of those teams. Like, again, a lot of hockey before then. And I know that, like, hoping is not a plan. But I don't know. I understand. Like, the Thornton thing was specific, though. The Thornton thing was very specific with a very certain owner. With the Boston Bruins. So find the owner who's sour on his first line center, and there is perhaps the key for Sweeney and Neely.
Do you remember where you were when Joe Thornton got traded?
Where was I when Joe?
I knew where I was when Gretzky got traded. I was scouting at the New York State games in Syracuse, New York, when Gretzky got traded in 1988. I was scouting. 1988. I was scouting then. So I remember where I was when Joe Thornton got traded, and I still couldn't believe it. I was like, what? I was in Colorado.
Yeah.
I was in the lobby of the hotel, and I was like, what? They just traded Joe Thornton to San Jose.
There was, it's funny too, because there was like, and I always love to play this sort of alternative universe in the NHL. You know, there was a 1-for-1 deal, but the Florida owner didn't want to take money back for Thornton for Luongo. Now, how different are the Boston Bruins if it's Thornton goes to Florida at that point and Roberto Luongo goes to the Boston Bruins? This is all, of course, again, like, you play the ifs and buts where candies and nuts would all have a Merry Christmas game, and how different is the NHL landscape if Thornton is a Florida Panther then, and Roberto Luongo is a Boston Bruin then, and dare we say Roberto Luongo and Tim Thomas are sharing a crease.
that changed the landscape a lot.
Completely.
How relevant would San Jose have been for all these years? They were unbelievably relevant when he was there.
Absolutely.
Hey,
no,
Joe,
hang on.
Joe,
let me, I'm glad you mentioned San Jose and Joe Thornton here, because I always love, I think we've forgotten just how good Logan Couture was, and Logan Couture calls it a career. Was it just that he was like regular season good, Pierre? But you saw what this guy was like in the playoffs.
I did a lot of their games, Jeff. I did a lot of their playoff games. This guy was an outstanding player. Look, the first time I ever saw him play was playing for the Ottawa 67s. And I was
for
like,
Killer.
This guy's really good.
Yeah.
And I just watched him grow. And back then, people forget, when Dougie Wilson was running San Jose, he had the pipeline because he played for Brian Kilray.
Yeah.
So they had a tie into the Ottawa 67s, and it was really strong. So when they took players from there, they got the right guys.
Yeah.
And boy, Logan was good. Oh man, was he good? He wasn't the fastest guy. He wasn't the biggest guy. He wasn't the strongest guy. He just
competed.
He was a really good player.
So I always wondered too, because I mean, you can remember when he was playing in Ottawa. I always, and you cross your fingers, and thankfully it wasn't a deterrent for him. But like, he had a couple of big concussions. I always wonder, like, oof, like, now you're getting in there, and it's the Western Conference, and you just cross your fingers. He never played like he had concussion issues, ever.
No,
fearless player. He was absolutely one of my favorites. Okay, a couple more here quickly. Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers. I don't care if I see this every season. I love it. I want to see Battle of Florida every single season. And here we go again. And I can't help but getting that soap and warm water feeling for Tampa. Like, here again, we're saying like Tampa could do it all one more time. Your thoughts on this series?
I'm with you. First of all, Vasilevsky's back.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be a favorite for Bobrovsky in Florida. I think Florida's going to miss Brandon Montour, who obviously signed with Seattle. I think they're going to miss Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who obviously signed with Toronto. They obviously don't have Aaron Ekblad to start the series. I think that's a bit of a problem. So 3 of their top 6 are out.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a fatigue factor that comes out of the 4 nations, especially for Florida, because they had so many guys involved. And obviously Matthew Tkachuk's not going to be 100% even if he plays. So I think it's a big problem for Florida. And you look at, Tampa Bay right now. One of the things that happened last offseason, getting Ryan McDonough back, Jeff, that's a huge get for them. It's a leader. It's a player. It's a guy that's revered in the room. Just watch when they presented him with his 1,000th game stick in Tampa. What Mr. Vinnick did there, that ceremony was off the charts, Jeff. Yep. And that just showed the respect they have for Ryan as a human and as a player. So I think it's a tough series for Florida to win. I really do.
Someone told me once, it was a great point. Said no defenseman in the NHL gets back to position quicker than Ryan McDonagh. It's one of those It's one of those things that like players recognize. Like, oh yeah, fans may miss it, but players recognize like that guy gets back to position so fast. Okay, last one for you, Pierre. We'll let you get on with your afternoon. The Winnipeg Jets make it in. All expectation and big question: can Connor Hellebuck do this? Pick your storyline. It's Four Nations goaltender versus Four Nations goaltender. It's Shen versus Shen. Like, pick your storyline in this one, Pierre. What are you looking for in St. Louis and Winnipeg?
Adam Lowry's going to have to play a big role in this thing. He's going to have to shut down. I think he's going to have to shut down and beat up on Robert Thomas. Size-wise, it shouldn't be a problem. But Thomas is such a crafty player. It's going to be interesting. The coaching matchup's going to be good too. Montgomery's a real good coach. We all know that. Arneal's been a tremendous coach.
Yeah,
there's a reason. Yeah. It's just not because of Hellebuck that they had the best defensive record in the league this year. Mm-hmm. That team played unbelievably well, and their checking line is so good. Obviously it all centers around, no pun intended, Adam Lowry. But I just think this is one of those. Thanks for finishing first. We get to play St. Louis. It's like, are you kidding me? They couldn't get a better matchup or an easier matchup. They got to play St. Louis. Like, that's just painful to think about.
But the thing is, like, don't you kind of feel about that for all the teams in the West? Like, there's I know that Minnesota might look like, oh, okay, so they still have that salary cap black hole, and there's ways, but like that's a team that plays hard. And you look at
Zeb Williams. I think Zeb Williams is going to run their first power play.
He was playing first power play at the skate this morning. There's Zeb Williams out there in the first unit.
That's what I'm saying. So, I mean, they already got a guy, and the trade deadline's been a couple months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they added a guy. I think Minnesota's going to cause some problems for Vegas, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Team speed. Minnesota's fast.
Yeah.
Minnesota's fast. So.
Good team. Listen, always appreciate it when you stop by. Always a good conversation. So here we go. Do we see no-hit hockey tonight? Is my final question for you. Do we see no-hit hockey?
I think so. I would hope so. There's a respect factor that has to go into it too. If you're one of those teams and not in the playoffs, you wish you were going.
Players know.
But you got. There's a respect factor too. They always talk about this code. That's one thing in the code that I think does exist.
It's a great point.
I think it does exist. Yep.
Really great point. Pierre, you be well. We'll listen. We're checking back regularly throughout the playoffs. Thanks, pal. We'll talk soon.
I can't wait. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the playoffs, everybody.
There he is, the great Pierre McGuire, who joins us regularly here on the sheet. And want to remind you, speaking of playoff hockey, celebrating playoff hockey with Canadian whiskey that's wisely done. Get your limited edition J.P. Wiser's Stanley Cup bottle at your local retailer today. J.P. Wiser's, expertly crafted and aged to perfection, is known for its smooth, refined taste and the premium whiskey experience it delivers for Canadians. Grab the new limited edition Stanley Cup bottle and enjoy the quality that matches the intensity of playoff hockey. Which will be the opposite, I think, of what we see tonight, Zach. I don't know that we're going to have the intensity of playoff hockey tonight. You know how in the I look at it this way. In the preseason, the exhibition season, it's really frowned upon for kids to take runs at vets. Like, it just doesn't. Even on your own team, you get pulled aside and say, like, hey, let's put a leash on this puppy here. Like, calm it down. You don't do that. It's one of the sort of unwritten rules, the protocols. Like, you're a kid, you're not taking a run at a vet during an exhibition game, a preseason game. I think we're getting the same thing tonight. And I tell you what, I do feel bad for people that have paid a lot of money to go buy tickets to watch these games. I get it. Trust me. I'm a dad. I buy hockey tickets. I take my kids to game. I know you want to see your stars competing as hard as possible. I don't know the answer for this, but if I'm any team that's going to the playoffs, not only am I scratching my best players, I don't want any of these guys to do anything dangerous. No scrums, you get out. No fights, not a chance. The boards are not your friend. Maybe stay away. You know what I'm talking about? Like you play as safe as possible. You dump it in, and we turn into the 1990s New Jersey Devils. It's, it's dump and chase. This is like dump and retreat. It's like tennis. Just lob it in, lob it out. That's what it is tonight. I don't know the way around. I don't know the way around it. I do feel bad for people that are going expecting to see like legitimate hard hockey. But as we saw yesterday with the Dallas Stars, the risks are just too great. They are. Sorry, hockey's a sport where you can get hurt really easily, and it doesn't discriminate. Oh, star players don't get hurt. Yes, they do, all the time. So I
mean, I think this is one of those ones where the captains walk down the hall before the game. They both just shake each other's hands and they're like, nothing tonight. Let's get in. Tonight. Let's get out. I talked to Hutz about it on Tuesday about rest versus rust and these teams down the stretch and not playing guys. He told me that his first game, it was in the 2013 year with Chicago. He got called up from Rockford. He goes and plays with the guys. He's like all pumped up. He goes out there and no Kane, no Taves, no Seabrook, no Keith. Like they just went down the list and he's like, yeah, there's a lot of pissed off Blackhawks fans in the crowd that night.
You pay a lot of money for tickets, man. I get it. Trust me, NHL tickets are not cheap. And you want to see the Stars. I guess that's the risk if you're buying your tickets at the beginning of the season. You think like, okay, this could be a meaningful game.
That's what I said to you. I wanted at least the Habs to lose so that we could get the Jackets game tonight. That would mean something. Even if they didn't win in reg and the Habs still got in, it would have meant something. And we would have had a game that meant something.
One game tonight that had some consequence attached to it?
Just anything. Anything. This is when you look at the TV ratings after, Jeff, and it's like, whoa, what happened that day? Ooh. Nothing mattered.
No consequence. Just stay safe and enjoy your summer, boys. Speaking of games, the sheet is powered by FanDuel, our friends and our partners here. Home of the same game parlay. Make every moment more on FanDuel. FanDuel, proud to connect fans to the major sports moments that matter to them. Speaking of mattering.
Does this matter?
Is this a sports moment that's going to matter to you tonight?
No.
Flyers and Sabres. Maple Leafs hosting the Detroit Red Wings. You still have responsibilities for this one?
Mm-hmm.
You just want.
I'm taking callers tonight.
Safe? You taking callers?
I want to put that out. I just want to. I don't do a lot of self promo here. I do want to put this out. I take callers on the post game show. Okay. Tonight, given the lack of stakes, let's put it that way, I want to fill the show with callers. So if people want to call in and give predictions and stuff for the playoffs, whether it's Battle of Ontario, if it's other stuff, Eastern Conference, Western Conference, I don't care. Join me on the Leafs Nation tonight. Call into the show. The link will be there. Just call in. I want to hear from people tonight, just hockey fans in general, Leafs fans. Call into the show. I just wanted to open that up and let people know that that's out there. That's a possibility.
Smelling salt still happening?
I'm assuming a lot because it feels like people might just pile in for the last game of the year. Every 50 likes on my show, I do the smelling salts. I got the bottle here. I got new bottles for the playoffs too, Jeff. So
how many do you have?
Game one, it should be good.
What kind of stash do you have?
I got two on my desk right here in front of me, and I kind of try to rotate through to keep them fresher. And then I have two here under my bed.
All right.
Within reach there. They're under there. I have a bottle for Vic, so I got to give him a bottle to start off the playoffs as well because he calls into the post-game show a bunch too.
Excellent. Look forward to that. Yeah. Also, Carolina-Ottawa at the Canadian Tire Center. Ottawa is going to have some playoff action, at least 2 games. The Rangers facing off against the Tampa Bay Lightning at MSG. As you mentioned, Columbus and the Islanders at Nationwide Arena. In a game we were hoping was going to mean something. The Flames face off against the Los Angeles Kings. Pittsburgh plays Washington. One thing I want to mention here is, and I really, really enjoyed this. We saw Matt Martin the other night come out and do the wave to the crowd, and his pregame was pretty emotional. Like, this is probably the end of the road here for Matt Martin. in the NHL who has earned his living the hardest way you can. You know what I thought was really great after that Washington Islanders game the other day? Seeing Tom Wilson go over to him to congratulate him on the career. I don't know how many times those two guys fought, but those two guys fought. And those two guys were front and center on, very quietly, a very good rivalry in the NHL, and it has been going back to the old Patrick Division days and things like the Easter Epic in 1987, the Islanders and the Washington Capitals. I just thought it was a real nice touch of Tom Wilson to go over and congratulate Matt Martin on a really wonderful career. I just thought it was a nice touch. I just liked it.
Yeah,
just really
I
enjoyed
like that stuff too.
It was really good.
I want to throw something out, Jeff.
What do you got?
For you and for people in the chat to be aware of. And we're talking about FanDuel. Rarely do this as well, like talk about actual betting things. Mm-hmm. I do bet a bunch. Mm-hmm. There's some opportunities here tonight. That call out by you on the Shane Wright goal, which unfortunately doesn't happen, was a good one. It was an important one. Like, people don't know about a lot of these things.
250,000.
There's a couple.
Matty Beniers
of
got his
opportunities
20th,
tonight.
by the way. Matty Beniers got his 20th that night. Anyhow.
Couple of opportunities tonight. They're not really tied to bonuses, but I'm sure these players would like to get some of these, and there's some good numbers, especially on FanDuel. Matthew Nyes is at 29. He needs 1 for 30. Again, I don't think some of these teams are really going to ooh, we got to get that goal, but it's there. If there's an opportunity, those ones might get overpassed or something like that to try.
Future Penguin Matthew Nyes, that guy?
And show's over. Anders Lee is at 29. Brady Tkachuk, who returns to action tonight, is at 29. There was one more I had on my list. Sebastian Aho is 1 goal away, I think, here as well. Brennan Rust is at 29. So some of these guys are just right there on the brink of getting to that 30 mark or the 20-goal mark. And some of those, they're just available. Their team's not making the playoffs. They're playing in a game where neither team's making the playoffs. I'm eyeing a bunch of those down because I feel like some of those, they're kind of important for the guys around them as well. I don't know. It feels like you're looking at a guy and you're like, hey, you're at 29. We get you to 30. That feels better than finishing with 29 or 19 and you get to 20. So those are ones I'm looking at tonight myself.
You want to end your season with a round number.
Yeah.
30, not 29. 40, not 30. By the way, did I mention this the other day? I can't recall. The most unlikeliest 30 goals or surprising 30 goals? Is it Alexei Protas or is it Pavel Dorofeev?
I thought about it because I had done up a graphic a couple weeks ago. We were going to talk about it. I almost feel like one of the most surprising ones is Nazem Kadri. Not surprising because he got 30, but just because we don't talk about it. It's not something that's out there.
Listen to Barn Burner sometime. Might want to listen to Barn Burner every now and then.
I just mean in general, it's not not like a big media conversation. Oh, well, there he is, Nazem Kadri, another 30-goal season. It just got swept under the rug. If you're looking the other way,
he had a good year.
Protas is the most surprising 30 of the two that you just mentioned, because that one I think came out of nowhere.
And when you look at the skill set, you look at him and his brother, who's playing in Windsor, with the Spitfires. Man, that team is big. Oh my God. Windsor Spitfires are huge. But I can see Protas scoring 30 goals every year. He has that skill, that size, that go to the net, all of it. I can see Protas continuing to score 30 every single year and maybe 40. Who knows? Anything else? Or are we anything chat wise we need to go over? Is there anything on our rundown we missed out on the program here today? After that Michigan goal by Gavin McKenna last night, a lot of people saying somehow he's going to Pittsburgh. By hook or by crook, somehow the NHL is going to get this guy.
The cold envelope.
Somehow
the heavy ping pong ball.
Somehow Gavin McKenna is getting to Pittsburgh. Somehow.
I did have one thing. I want to know. I want to know if you have any idea or if something we could figure out going forward why this is the case. But I strongly believe, because I bring this up because I saw it on social media, the Winnipeg Jets put out a very good video to promote their Winnipeg whiteout. I strongly believe the Jets should wear white jerseys when they do the whiteout.
I agree.
Why would you wear blue when you're doing that? The other team's wearing the white jerseys. You got to wear the white.
You can ask the NHL, like for sort of special dispensation to reverse it. So you can put in that request. I mean, for that one, yes, I'm generally not a fan of white jersey, socks, and helmets. I think between the ice and the boards, that there's enough white on your screen to make your eyes go, oh man, that's too harsh. But for something like that, yeah, like the polar bear game, yeah, 100%, just white, complete white out. Yeah, it's a good look.
The building looks so cool, and then you just look and it's like, oh, the Jets are wearing blue.
Although the contrast is kind of cool. I will give them that.
The other team's wearing white. I don't know. That's
it makes
also
it look like they're supporting
the
other team. Makes it look like supporting the visiting team.
Yeah, I wouldn't say supporting the other team. It's just kind of like, what are we doing? Like we could just have them with the same as the home team. Whatever. Anyways, the other thing I want to throw out there, my brain comes up with some of these things that are just really dumb sometimes. But if the NHL wanted to make $1 billion going into this weekend, $1 billion.
That's half of an expansion franchise.
You got to relaunch those old Leafs Sens jerseys for both teams ahead of this rivalry. Like the day that series was finalized, you should have had this prepared and ready to go, and both teams wear the OG jerseys from the series back in the day. Whatever ones, I think they wore pretty much the same ones throughout the entire stretch that they played against each other. But you come over the top, King Daddy Topper by the NHL. You release the old school jerseys. The new players are wearing them. The new names are on the jerseys. I guarantee you those things would have flown off the shelves. I probably would have bought 4 myself. I probably would have just been buying them left, right. Hey, it wouldn't have mattered. So I think they should have brought them back. Missed opportunity.
When you think of the Battle of Alberta, or Battle of Ontario, I apologize. When I think of Battle of Alberta, I think of Tim Hunter. When you think of the Battle of Ontario, who's the one player or 2 players that you think of?
Sundin and Tucker.
Okay, no, okay.
Sundin is just
one
because...
for maybe more specific. One from each side. There are Leaf blinders.
Alfie and Chris Neal.
Chris Neal, eh?
Yeah.
I think Spezza. I think Alfredson, Spezza, and I think Tucker and either Sundin or Nieuwendyk. And that might be just because of that Game 7.
Senators head coach Travis Green skating at the bench, pointing at everybody.
be. There was that great troika in that room. Was Travis Green, Shane Corson, and Darcy Tucker. That was an interesting room. One day we'll talk about the history of that room with those players. Like there was the Sundin, Domi, and then there was Roberts, Nieuwendyk, and then there was the 3 that I just mentioned. It was a really intriguing room. It was one of the more interesting rooms in the NHL at that point. Yes, Travis Green was a huge part of it. We tend to forget how fierce a competitor maybe you remember how fierce a competitor Travis Green was. He was awesome. It's leave everything on the ice kind of guy. No wonder players love him as coach.
Yeah. Jonas Hoagland was on Leafs Morning Take this morning. He said Pat Quinn used to have to reel in the team and be like, let's calm down here a little bit, which is kind of funny. A little contrasting to what you see today, but fun to hear at least.
You know what I love? One of the things that there's a lot of reasons that I loved Pat Quinn, but this is one of my favorite tiny little things. Pat Quinn, Pat Quinn would lose it on guys on the bench, but he would only do it when the play was on. You know why?
You didn't want to get caught by cameras, right?
Bingo. He would be blasting someone, and the minute the whistle blew, whoop, not a word, and just looking stately behind the bench. And then the puck drop of the game would be on, and he'd just like get back into ripping someone. But it's hilarious. The play would stop, and Quinn would just button up. Didn't want to be caught on camera, just ripping into somebody. Oh,
That's funny. The best story I heard of Pat Quinn, this is Jeff O'Neill tells some good ones, but my favorite one of him was he said one time they were in the room before a game and Pat Quinn was like, nobody get on the officials tonight, let them be, blah, blah, blah. And he says the puck dropped. He said literally the opening puck dropped and Pat was pissed off by the way the puck was dropped and he started laying into the official, telling him he was a joke, he was an amateur, and you better not have us all night. Yeah,
Pat didn't like officials. Pat
they were
didn't
like,
Pat,
Pat,
I don't
you
think,
just told us to calm down.
I don't think Rick Lee liked officials very much. Like the whole Keith Acton. Like I don't think the whole bench liked officials. But Pat really didn't have a lot of time. Didn't really have a lot of time for officials. Did I ever tell you I remember having a conversation once about the idea of getting rid of morning skates and doing your practices in the evening, so you train your body to play, to practice when you play, so your body athletically is trained to peak at the time when your event begins. Like fighters do this, right? They'll train to they'll like have their bodies so finely tuned, they'll do all their heavy training when their fight is going to occur, so their body peaks athletically. Pat Quinn wanted to do that. Matt Nichol told me that Pat Quinn wanted to do that, but he knew he would lose the room. He said, this makes a lot more sense. I don't want to do morning skates. We don't have to worry about the guys like going out and getting buckled at night. Like it's a responsible group of guys. Like I want to do our practices at night, but he goes, I know if I do it, I'll lose everybody in the room because they want their evenings. They want their evenings. So I'm telling you, somewhere down the road, there is going to be a coach in the NHL that does this, that says your mornings are for recovery, practices we do in the evening because that's when we play games. There is going to
Makes a lot of sense.
There is going to be that coach in the end. Other sports have realized it. Hockey still hasn't. We're still married to this idea. Like, you know the origins of the morning skate? I'm going to do a little sidebar here. You know the origins of the morning skate? You know where it come from?
No.
That was their way of making sure the guys didn't get drunk the night before. Had a morning skate.
Sense.
And then I remember Colby Armstrong would tell me like the secret was always like if you overserved the next day, you just rub like Vicks Vapor Rub like all over your chest. Like just lathered so you couldn't smell vodka on your breath or gin or beer or whatever on your breath. And that was a dead giveaway. Someone was hammered the night before. It's like, oof, you got the Vicks on your chest. Okay, buddy, it was a good night, I guess. But somewhere, some coach is going to finally take the plunge and say, your mornings are for you to recover. Your evenings is when we work out and train because that's when we play. I don't know who that coach is going to be. I saw that UC Ahokas was the coach of the year in the OHL, Kitchener Rangers head coach. I think he's going to coach in the NHL one day. Anyone who's ever played for him will tell you the same thing. Really progressive guy. I wonder if it's him or someone like him that says, this is what we're doing. Enough of the morning skates. It makes no sense. We're giving ourselves an advantage. Kind of like Mike Gillis with Vancouver. Remember when Gillis came in with the sleep studies in Vancouver and everybody laughed at him? Everybody laughed at him about, oh, here comes the pillow. Make sure all the guys have the right pillows. And, oh, here he comes in with his sleeping studies and what it means for hockey players and blah, 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 blah. What do they all do now? What are they all obsessed with? Your players getting enough sleep. Or Mike Gillis was years ahead of everybody on that one. They all laughed at him. There's going to be a coach that says we practice at night.
It makes a lot of sense.
They'll all laugh at him.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to get the players on board.
Players will hate it.
But
we will have a revolt.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
The players, and anyway, Matt Nichols' point was Pat Quinn talked about that years ago, but didn't do it because he didn't want to lose his room. Anyhow, Thanks to Pierre McGuire for stopping by. We have one more night of NHL lowercase a action. Enjoy. You like that one? Enjoy it if you can. We'll be watching because that's what we do. Like every single day. Tomorrow there's the reprieve, but enjoy the games tonight. Playoffs on the horizon. All gets underway on Saturday. We'll have full coverage here on the sheet, full coverage on Morning Cup of Hockey, full coverage on Daily Faceoff Live, and all of our other regional properties as well. And also, discussion of what's next. Our Calgary crew, our Vancouver crew, all over what's next for those really hot. Like, I can't wait to hear Sakaris and Price tomorrow. Tomorrow is closeout day for the Vancouver Canucks. I can't wait to hear what Matt and Blake have to say about it. So check out what we're offering. We will give you thorough wall-to-wall, 360, however you want to describe it, coverage of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And if I mentioned before, if it weren't already co-opted by the Disney Corporation, we would say it's the most wonderful time of the year. Enjoy your day. The sheet returns tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern. Talk to you then. If you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.